Library Board of Trustees to order, and we'll start with the roll call, please.
Chair Petty.
Here.
Vice Chair Moreau.
Here.
Trustee Yoshi. Trustee Yoshi. I will go back to him. Trustee Thompson.
Here.
Trustee Widmar.
Here.
And Trustee Yoshi.
Yoshi? Who are you? That me?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. This is Joshi.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Okay. All
I was
right.
confused by that. I thought there was somebody else there.
Okay, thank you very much. First, let me ask, Mary Jane, are you here with us? Mary Jane's picture's frozen to me. That's why I was asking. Well, let's hope she gets reconnected. Okay. Well, if everybody is hooked in, then we'll continue. Is that okay? And oh, by the way, if you can see me waving my finger, since you'll be muting your mic, and no matter how loud you yell, I won't hear you saying it's my turn to talk. Just wave your finger, and I'll make a note of that, and then that's how I'll know to call on you to speak to the group. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Yes.
Well, our next item here is a presentation that we want to make, and it's hardly a presentation given the setup that we're required to use today, but it's to recognize Dennis Copeland, not just for putting up with us and everybody else for 21 years at the library, but mostly for all of the wonderful things that he has done, both for the group of museums that we have, and in particular for the California History Room. Inga, do you want to pick up from there and continue? Because I think we have a relatively lengthy description, and we're not planning on reading that into the minutes, correct? I mean, it'll be in the minutes, but we're not planning to read it.
Correct. So there's a lot of feedback when I speak.
Not to me.
Oh, okay. Let's see. So yes. So we. I hope that everybody has had a chance to read the recognition of Dennis Copeland, and it's really hard to sum up his career with the city of Monterey because it's been so extensive. And what's even harder, and this doesn't even begin to address, is just the impact that he's had on our history program and on thousands and thousands of researchers and students. And he's really, really helped promote Monterey through heritage tourism. And it's just a tremendous loss not to have his expertise. But we're very, very grateful for the years that he has been with us. And we hope this is not goodbye, because he's so embedded in our telling of our history that we hope to work with him some more in the future.
Would any of the other trustees like to say a word or two? Jim, I see your finger.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, good. Well, I just wanted to mention that Dennis started about a year after I did with the city of Monterey, and he was much more, had much more stay with it than I did, since I bailed out a little bit long before he did. But I've had the opportunity to see him when he first started with Monterey, and then I've had a chance to see him much more recently. And throughout that period, I've had nothing but respect for everything that Dennis has done. In my mind, he's been just a real class act. He's had so much passion, a nice sense of humor, such a dedication and professionalism. I just think he's done a wonderful job, and I certainly hope he's able to come back on a part-time basis when he's interested and when everything allows. And I just wanted to thank him for all the work he's done for the city and for being a good colleague when I, in fact, worked with him when I worked for the city. So I wanted to thank him, and I'll let it go at that. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to say a word or two?
Yes, me.
Marcia.
Yes, I think, Dennis, a lot of the work that you have done has really made Monterey a unique environment for so many people. It made the history of Monterey kind of come alive in a way that in most places it doesn't. And your stewardship of all of those historical artifacts and the history room really sort of enlivened the whole environment for so many students and so many citizens here and so many tourists and visitors. So it's just been you kind of changed the character of the way we look at our city, I think, and thank you for that.
Is there anybody else? No? Okay. I see some people.
I'm sorry, Bob. Hans would like to say a few words.
Oh, okay.
I thank you so much, Chair. Dennis, thank you. I would not do my job if I wouldn't chime in here right now. Dennis has been at the city almost as long as me, and I fondly remember Dennis as the guy in the California History Room while I was working next to Jim Conway in the building at 422 Madison Street. And Dennis, over the years, you have filled Jim's big shoes easily and have done a tremendous job in continuing the legacy that we had established. And I have many questions that came through the suggest line. Some of them were so exotic, and I forwarded them to you because somebody had heard something in their family history while they were living in Vermont about something in Monterey, and it was astonishing. You always said, yep, I know about this. I will respond to that. So you have done a great job for us, for the city of Monterey. I appreciate so much how you made history come alive. I respect you going into retirement. I wish you the best. You see, with Jim Thompson sitting there is a life after the city, and it has also meaning, and it also allows you to follow your hobbies, your dreams, your passions. We will miss you very much, Dennis, and I can only hope to see you soon in a different capacity here in the city of Monterey. You know that I always honored the city's history, and I'll hope sooner than later our paths will cross again. Certainly June 3rd, when we are celebrating our 250th birthday. I wish you, your family, the best. I will walk by your home like I did many nights, and if I see you, I will raise the hand and wish you well. Bye-bye, my friend.
Okay, I lost Hans. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? I got a picture of Dennis on the front, and it said that Nat had done something.
Yes, I just shared a photo of Dennis while Hans was speaking. That comes from the Monterey County Weekly, and celebrate.
Oh, okay, there we go.
As a way for us to celebrate his service to the community and to the city.
Okay, great. Am I correct? There is nobody from the public who has tuned in to our meeting so far? Francesca or Nat, can you tell if that's happened?
It has not happened, but we also haven't invited any public comments. So I can provide the information.
No, but they might be listening in even without making a comment, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We actually do need to, I'm sorry, Chair Petty, but we do need to announce for public comment the dial-in number. so that
Okay,
people know
where's-
what number and conference ID to call into. Otherwise, folks won't be able to actually provide that public comment effectively.
Okay, Francesca, would you please do that for me?
Yes, so we ask that members of the public call 831-225-0330 and enter 1927-648#. It's best to follow along on the YouTube live stream as it has the shortest delay. For those who do call in, you'll be automatically muted. Please press *5 to be placed in the queue to speak. And remember to mute your background audio.
Okay.
And Dennis is also here as well.
Who is he? What is
Dennis,
here?
and the chance while we wait for public, since there is a delay, we always want to wait at least 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Bob, could I suggest that we ask for a repeat of that information? It went pretty quick for people that didn't have a pencil handy.
Okay, Francesca, you need to repeat the number and the code number.
Yes, and it is likely also on the Chiron on your screen. You can call 8.
I don't see the number on my screen.
We are seeing a different screen than the members of the public will see. So the members of the public may call 831-225-0330 and enter the ID number 1927-648, followed by the #. Once you do call, please press *5 to be placed in the queue. And as of right now, there is nobody on the line waiting.
Okay. Well then, anybody else want to make a comment before? No, okay. I can't say enough about what Dennis has contributed because he's really one of a kind and he has really done things that nobody else could have for the city and for all the people in the city. And it's, as Jim said, it's sad to see him go, but hopefully he's not really gone 100%. And we look forward to Dennis continuing to contribute to the historical documentation of our city and state and working with the library and the museums to make it available to really the rest of the world. And could not have done more with everything or however little he was given to work with. So Dennis, thank you so much. And if you have any parting words, we'd love to hear them.
And Chair Petty, there are actually a couple of callers now.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, then
to
we'll take the public comments first before Dennis gets his turn. So Francesca, tell the people who have called in when it's their turn and go for it, please.
Okay, so the first caller ends in the number 7440. You are unmuted. Thank you for calling in to the Monterey Public Library Board of Trustees. You are live. Oh, if you can wait one moment, please. Oh, no.
Do you want me to try this here? Here, let's see.
Oh, there, I've got it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
If you can turn off the audio, the YouTube or Comcast that you might be watching, that would be helpful, please.
Okay. It's off.
Perfect. You are live.
Would you like me to go ahead?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, my name is Cathy Nielsen, and I'm an on-call librarian at the Monterey Public Library. And I wanted to personally thank Dennis for his amazing contribution to the city of Monterey. He shared his knowledge and his commitment with all of us, and this knowledge will be passed on down to next generation. It has been a privilege and an honor to work with Dennis.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for calling, Cathy. The next caller, Douglas Holtzman, you are unmuted and live with the Monterey Public Library Board of Trustees.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
The time delay is a little odd here. Well, I understand, Dennis, you're watching this too, and words fail me. I didn't realize this would be part of the meeting when I tuned in, but I just had to call and say that you have accomplished amazing, amazing things since we started this all these long years ago, and it was such a pleasure working with you, and as I say, I am absolutely amazed by everything you've accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Are there any others, Francesca?
Well, there was one, maybe we'll just give it 10 seconds. There's a
Sure.
couple that has come on and off a couple of times, so perhaps they might call back.
Tell me when you think we have waited long enough.
Yeah, and sometimes, honestly, Francesca's doing a great job, by the way, with the audio conferencing system. The folks will call in and they'll actually, I don't know if they get cold feet or whatever, but they hang up and we just have to move on sometimes.
I see. Okay, thank you, Matt.
Okay, so are we assuming that's what happened here?
Yes. And if
All
I see
right.
something, then I'll let you know after Dennis makes his
Yeah,
comment.
okay. So Dennis, are you there?
I am overwhelmed. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. All we see is a telephone, but we can hear you.
That'll represent me for now. So
Okay.
I want to thank Hans, Cathy, and Doug, and the library board members for your kind and especially generous comments. I really appreciate them. I also want to thank the library board for your continued support and through thick and thin. And I think we accomplished a lot together. And so I wanted to convey that to you. I do have a few comments I'd like to make. Is that what I remember the most and appreciate the most are the collaborations and the friendships established in the history and the cultural resources community, but also at the library and through the museums. Especially cherish and want to thank the staff members of the library and the 7 or so staffers of the museums and cultural arts. What great teams we have with wondrous service and programs, and they provide our community and residents and visitors with so much, and that is engaging, helping, informing, teaching. And I've learned from everyone, and I hope, I know that we've shared a lot together, and through ups and down cycles, and we're able to provide the most professional and utmost service at all our institutions. That's the library and the museums and cultural arts. So I just want to thank everyone. And this is a tough parting, and you know, we're going through very challenging times. But I do hope to come back at some point and finish the work that I haven't finished, and some of the projects that need to be finished with our historical treasures. So I can leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Dennis. And we will definitely hold you to that promise to come back and continue your work with the the museums and the library. And I'm sure I speak for everybody that we can't wait for all the various restrictions and virus-related rules and regulations to allow us to get back busy with that and have you rejoin us.
Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, what if we all clap? Can we all clap? Very good. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda consisting of 2 items. Is there anybody either on the board or attending from the public who wishes to pull anything on those items off and make them separate items for discussion?
And again, to comment during this meeting, please call 831-225-0330 and enter 1927648, followed by the pound sign. This time there is nobody that has called in.
Do you think we've waited long enough for anybody else? I don't hear any members of the board saying let's discuss instead of leaving these on the
I
consent.
do think that's enough time.
Okay. And I don't know for what it's worth, but everybody is frozen on my screen except for Francesca. Well then, if there,
Jim Thompson wishes to speak.
he does? Okay, I can't tell because the picture's frozen.
Yes, I just wanted to move approval of the consent calendar, including items 2 and 3.
Good, I was just gonna ask for that. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Marcia seconded, so we have a first and second. Is there any discussion of the motion on the floor? If not, Francesca, if you can see all our pictures, raise your hand and wave if it's an aye.
What I'm
You
told
say
is that we
aye?
still need, unless Nat
Want to do
tells
a
me
roll
different,
call? Okay, do a roll call.
a verbal roll call is necessary.
It is necessary.
Okay,
Okay, so Chair Petty,
aye.
Vice Chair Moreau,
Aye.
Trustee Joshi,
Aye.
Trustee Thompson,
Aye.
Trustee Widmar.
Aye.
That concludes the trustees.
Check here.
Bob, you might have frozen for a moment. However, all of the trustees did approve.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear Jim or Ralph. Okay. So then we will move on next to the public comments section, which is the opportunity for people who are attending our meeting from the public to make comments about any items that are not already on our agenda. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on anything to the library board that is not already scheduled for discussion on the agenda, a different topic?
So
I can't hear you.
Francesca, you're muted.
Thank you. And a helpful thing for all of us, remember, we can all unmute and mute one another. So for members of the public who'd like to make a comment, to please call 831-225-0330. Enter 1927648, followed by the pound sign.
And again, this is to comment on items that are not already on our agenda. Is this the
And-
30-second delay time?
Well,
What do you think?
it's supposed to be 10 seconds. So yes, I think you
Okay.
may move forward.
then we'll move on to item number 4, which is to receive a report from our library director about the services that we were able to provide during the shelter-in-place period. And so, Inga, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you, Chair Petty. So this report was actually assembled by Francesca Garibaldi, but ordinarily we have an activity report at our board meetings. And since we haven't had a board meeting since February, a lot of things have taken place. What I wanted to share or give you a sense of is just how much work the library staff have been performing and how well they've been serving the public under these unusual circumstances. We closed our doors starting March 14th. Nevertheless, we've been answering the information line. We've been answering reference questions. We've been issuing library cards and promoting online services and adding some online services so that people can read books online, stream videos online, listen to music, and read graphic novels. Our Wi-Fi is on for people who need Wi-Fi. They can come and park in our parking spaces or along the street in front of the library between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. And we're planning, has been going forward for summer reading. And then one of the things that was so impressive is that staff were able to switch to virtual programming very rapidly. And so there have been 4 children's programs every week. We've had a bilingual sing-along and science Saturdays, story times, and endless tales. And then also there's been teen video programs every week. And then we've had ongoing weekly yoga classes that are interactive. And we've had history chats where people call in, and Sean, our local history librarian, has led the. And is my time up? And then we've had a few one-offs as well for people on how to deal with stress and so forth. I think it's just a nice report to read because it also, everybody who's been working summarized what they've been accomplishing as well. I didn't mention the cataloging that was going on and the ordering of materials and a lot of behind the scenes things happening, updating and refreshing and changing around our website to promote just the virtual services. And so I've been really impressed. I'm very proud of our staff for all that they have done during this unusual time.
Okay. The sound is so choppy here. Inga, are you concluded?
I am.
Okay. Then do any of the trustees have questions to clarify or questions for more information from Inga, please? Jim, you were waving.
Yes, I had one question and one comment, if I could do both while I've got the floor. The question is on packet page 14 under the library physical materials. There's a discussion of zip books, which I know can be extremely helpful. But at the end of that paragraph, it mentions that we plan to supplement the state funding with funds from our materials budget. And I just had a bit of a heads up about that, I personally am not sure. I'm totally in favor of this program as long as it's state funded. If it gets to our own general fund or trust fund budget, then I might want to review that a little bit more carefully before we supplement the state funding for the zip books. That's just my personal opinion, and perhaps we could revisit that when we get to the budget item. The second more general comment I would like to make is just that I'm very impressed with what Inga and all the library staff have been able to accomplish during this last couple of months. It's been a very difficult period in a lot of respects, and I know that the creativity has really enhanced our virtual branch library, and I just wanted to give my kudos to the entire staff for everything that's been accomplished during this last several months and realizing it's a difficult period from a health perspective and a financial perspective and a job security perspective. And again, a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Comments or questions, I should say, from any of the other trustees? I assume everybody can hear me. Yes? Okay, thanks, Harish. Well, then I will just second this really impressive accomplishment on it just is another way of looking at and appreciating the quality of the library staff that we have had. At this point, if there are any people who are listening in who are not on the Board of Trustees, members from our public, if you would like to comment on the material Inga presented, now is your turn to call in and do that.
And again, to do so, members of the public may call 831-225-0330. Enter the number 1927648, followed by the pound sign. And Trustee or Chair Petty, we don't have any calls at this time.
Okay. In that case, Nat or Hans, is this a topic on which either or both of you have any comments or additional information to share with the board before the board discusses what Inga presented?
No, just again, I think echoing what other trustees have said, we are very proud of the staff for pulling all of the programs and services together in light of the shelter-in-place order. It was very evident throughout the city and particularly within the library, Monterey Public Library staff, that unlike other cities that had a lot of time, and it took quite a while to ramp up operations with the shelter-in-place, this team was very resilient and swiftly was able to get programs in place. And in particular, the library staff should be really proud of being part of the team for Operation Outreach as well, which has reached out to over 2,000 seniors since the shelter-in-place started. And we are among the first of cities in the entire state of California to actually launch a program like that. And the library staff is certainly a part of that, working in collaboration with the Parks and Recreation Department as well. So thank you again on behalf of the City Manager's Office to all the staff and for all the really hard work and great programming. I've heard great things about the local history program. I've watched Ebony's videos that she's put on and others here to Sarah, Kim, and of course Ellie. So thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Okay, trustees, any further discussion of the report? We have received aspects of this well-presented report for Inga that we would like to bring up to her right now. And I see we have Kim and Ellie still hanging in here with us, I think. If either of you have anything to add, please don't hesitate. Well, either nobody can hear me or everybody has nothing to say.
Marcia does.
Marcia does. See, Marcia's picture's been frozen for a long time. Now I can see you, Marcia.
Okay, thank you. Maybe nothing personal.
I wasn't ignoring you and your finger pointing.
Yeah. No, I guess somewhere will appear about which of these things are gonna not happen when June 2nd comes around. I mean, it wasn't really emphasized here, but I think it's something that we should all keep in mind. And with the further planning ahead about which of these things can't happen without all the people that are there to make them happen.
I could say a little bit about it just off the top of my head. We won't be having we won't be having the local history chats, and yoga is going away effective the end of the month, and we hope to have some children's programs pre-recorded that we could release over the summer, and I'm not quite sure how far along we've gotten with that because both Ellie and Arcadia, who've been doing that program, had a lot of other things on their plate because they're wrapping up their time with us right now. And then Ebony, I can report, had recorded, pre-recorded videos so that we'll be able to release them every week during the summer so that the teens that are in the program moves forward. And also we're going to have Mary Lee Sinceri, who is a musician, do our children's program every week. And that will be a Zoom program, so it'll be interactive.
Okay, that
I just
partially answers. Marcia, are you waving at me with your finger again, or is that
I just wanted
a delayed picture of your finger waving from?
No, I just wanted to ask a follow-up, and it was something that you know, I've been hearing from folks. I don't know how to address this, but it's the question about seniors who don't have don't use the internet very much and just read books, and you know, we call them and find out how they're doing, but a lot of them don't have any resources that will connect them to the library. So it's just something to keep in mind for the future. They're just out there with nothing to read.
So that's a good point, Marcia, and we'll have to keep thinking about that. There is a service that Francesca found really early on where people can call in for educational programs, and it's a service that's offered to a lot of the nursing homes. So that was on our list of resources when we were calling older adults and talking to them about how they were doing and so forth. That's something we could promote. And then also I imagined what would it be like to have a call-in program where people could have discussions about things if they're not able to join a meeting or join a program through a computer. So that's a good question, and we'll have to figure out good ways to do that.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, well, thank you very much, Inga and Francesca and Ellie and Kim, and through you, please, all the rest of the staff that have been working hard and doing such tremendous things almost entirely away from their normal stomping grounds at the library. And it's, you know, a lot more difficult to do a lot of these things when you don't have the resources at your fingertips at home that you would otherwise have. Not the least of which is being able to talk to your colleagues and ask them for help and talk about how to do something and plan something. So thank you once again. And all this does is really reinforce the strength of everybody's desire to see a reopening slowly but surely start in the very near future. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, which deals with receiving and getting explanation of a report, I guess was prepared by you, Mary Jane, on fund development. Mary Jane there?
That's right. That's right, Bob.
I was actually going to ask Mary Jane if she would like to just point out some highlights from it. That would be great for all of us.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's see.
As you gather your thoughts, I could go through the chart. Okay.
Sure.
So-
You want to walk them through the financials?
Well, or you can. I just
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So okay. So well, the really great news that you see in this report is that the first quarter of the year, January through March, was a really exceptional one for us. The grand total for the quarter, which is quarter 3 for us because quarter 1 starts in July, was 3,307% greater than the previous year. And so if you look at the chart on packet page 19, you'll see how we did in the different funds that we have. So endowment fund raised $550. That's listed in the restricted column because there are restrictions on how and when we can spend the money. In the trust fund, we had restricted dollars that came in. Part of that was a gift of $30,000 from a private donor to run our summer reading program. Very generous gift. And then also that was when we received, I believe, money for a 3D printer. And then under unrestricted, that's where we got the first and largest installment from the Esselstyn bequest. Those that was from a couple that had been very very supportive and of the Bookmobile, and they used the Bookmobile weekly. In fact, Mrs. Esselstyn sort of timed her day around the Bookmobile visit to the Park Lane, and so we're very grateful for that bequest. And but they did not restrict the use of it, so they knew that the library would be able to decide the best use of their gift. Then under Friends and Foundation, the Friends raised just under $4,000 in restricted funds and a couple $1,000s in unrestricted. So the grand total of these efforts was just under $200,000 for the year. So it was a very great quarter. And did anybody have questions about those numbers?
I have a question about a number, but Francesca first, could you help me? I accidentally clicked on the thing that said people in the upper right corner, and now I have a long list of everybody that's here, but I want to get rid of that so I can see the rest of my screen.
You can just click on another square, even click on your own square, and it will just bring it back.
Oh, I got Nat, and I got me. How do I get to that page where I had the checkerboard?
Tile, so then you'll need to go to the settings, change layout.
Settings where?
The settings is at the bottom right next to the Present Now button.
It's the 3 dots.
I don't see 3 dots on mine on the bottom. I'm not getting that strip of white across the bottom. Oh, there we go. All right, it finally came up. And now I see layout, and I can hit tile. Whoop. All I see is me, and I don't like that.
So when you click the change layout and then you go to tile view.
I went to tile and it didn't change a thing. I'd really rather not watch me. Whoops.
You might have maybe accidentally pinned yours. Maybe if you went to click on your picture, did you accidentally click?
Yeah, I thought you told me to.
Yes, I'm in the corner, but there is an actual thumbtack that one might accidentally press that would then make that the prominent screen.
There we go. Hey, okay. Thank you. Now, the comment I was gonna, or the question I was gonna ask Mary Jane, if you take out those couple really big donations, then the balance of what we got year to year is still a nice significant increase. Can you characterize where that portion of the quarter that you're reporting came from? Was that just, you know, a whole bunch of donations from the public or what?
I wish I could. I think that I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I wasn't here last December. So I'm not sure what light I can shed. The footnote number 4 about the addition in January of the distribution of our share of the prorated, I think it was called the challenge funds, or at the end of MC Gives, there's a bucket of money and it's prorated among all the organizations. So we booked that in January, and I did add that as a footnote because that is the only largish item that I could identify that might have skewed this year favorably. So I can't shed too much. And then shall I go ahead and just make a couple of comments as overviews?
Yes, but I want to make one more thing, mention regarding the chart. So in our trust fund budget, we conservatively estimate that we'll raise about $95,000 during the course of a 12-month period. And the chart before you shows what was raised in one quarter. So it's very good for us to see the kind of success that we had in that quarter. But Mary Jane, go ahead and continue and talk about what else we've been doing.
Well, I'll just, it's all there to be read. So I'll just mention that we, you know, somehow did keep the wheels running on the bus and did handle our spring appeal as we had planned, although it had a different tone and focus than we had anticipated, since we found ourselves writing it in late March. I was really glad that Inga was willing to go ahead with the appeal, because some leaders might have just thought that the sky was falling and that we shouldn't have, but I think it was smart of us to go ahead. A couple of underlying principles that have that we've tried to bring forward with the direct mail appeals that we've produced have been to broaden our reach as much as possible. I could see that in the past we were definitely asking recent donors to give again, but that we weren't going back very far to see who we might have lost and might try to regain. So we've been working with that. That explains one quantity, which is how very many newsletters we sent. We sent 1,200 newsletters, which was a lot. But we sort of put the pedal to the metal to try to mail that informational item, which did have a contribution envelope in it, to mail it out to everyone who'd been part of the Friends. I think we went back 7 or 8 years, I think. I'm not dead sure right now. But we've tried to be a little more aggressive in going back to get our people who used to be in our backyard, to get them giving again. And also we've tried to be kind of a little stickier about not letting go of people. For example, it was a little bit of a surprise to me that our chocolate and wine ticket buyers, and it's hard to find a bigger, better fan club than the chocolate and wine attendees, that those individuals were never put into the database. So thanks to Christy Balistrieri's help and her own instincts about the importance of getting those in the database, we went back and got all of the 2019 people and all the 2020 people. And we have seen some gifts as a result, because once they're in the database, we can ask them. So those couple of general principles on trying to be a little more, broaden our reach. Thanks to Christy and to Francesca, we've been really prompt with stewardship. And I think there was a period of time, maybe it was in April after Christy had been reassigned to acquisitions, where I think there were a couple of acknowledgement letters that didn't get out for a couple of weeks, but that's still pretty good. So anyway, we've been pretty careful about stewardship, because my motto is, if you don't take care of your donors, somebody else will. So we're trying to take care of and husband those donors. And then last but not least at all is the one-on-one meetings that Inga and I had started ramping up with right after the holidays. And although not many of them came to pass, we know we can reawaken those, and well, we'll just reschedule them. They'll just have to be virtual or phone calls, or maybe we can figure out some porch visits, Inga, somehow. Because that's, as you all know, because you went through the library strategies work, it's with that one-on-one relationship building, which I have to say, Inga and some of the board members have already been great at doing. And actually some of the staff, our Bookmobile, some of our, as Inga mentioned, with the large Esselstyn bequest, the relationship between the Bookmobile operator and that donor was really very poignant. In any event, it's those one-on-one meetings. That's where we'll do the relationship building and where we'll be able to see real gains in the program over a period of years. So
great. Thank you. Thank you. Do any of the trustees have any questions of Mary Jane or Inga on this topic on fund development?
hi, Ralph. Ralph's
Can anybody-
waving.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, Bob. I cannot hear Ralph, who's trying to ask a question.
Ralph
On
is
my-
muted.
I was kind of double muted there for a
There you
moment,
were.
but I managed to break through. While it's great to see things like a 3,300% increase, it'd really be nice to see what the numbers actually were. Because it doesn't show, it says it was still 68% larger than Q3 2019, but I have no idea what Q3 2019 was. So I'm kind of a simple guy when it comes to things like this. I'm not impressed with percentages.
Yeah, I've got
so
that.
much as I am. I'm just saying it would be nice to have had those in the actual report, because you've got a statistic instead of a fact. So
Okay.
just looking forward, it's easier to understand. It's an impressive number, but it's kind of meaningless unless you have some context around what were the actual numbers.
Got it.
So
I can't hear Ralph.
trying to be as clear as possible in communicating about what we're doing in fundraising.
Got it.
Any other trustee comments or questions?
Like Marcia had.
Yeah, just a quick question. In your sense, I know that the spring appeal went out in March, so we're not done with that. But I was just wondering if you're seeing a drop in donations the way the rest of the country is, or how do you get a sense of how the spring appeal is doing?
It's been a little disappointing. I think it hit mailboxes in the first week of April. And so yeah, I'm a little disappointed, but
I think that's the way it is in the country right now, so it's not surprising. I was hoping that we bucked the trend, but I don't think so.
yeah, I thought our letter was so irresistible that it would have broken through, but
So I have heard a lot of people comment about the story that we told in the letter because it talked about Monterey's resiliency and what Monterey went through in 1918 during the flu epidemic. So people sort of the story kind of stuck, which is a good, point to think about, when we're sending out appeals, what's the story? And but I think because of what's going on in the world, as you've said, Marcia, people have just been directing their funds elsewhere, or don't have funds to direct.
Jim, I see a movement. One of my screens is working.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment, if I could, related to the Friends and Foundation. I think it was a real accomplishment that the Friends of the Library were able to transition into a Friends and Foundation. And just about the time they were able to achieve that is when the shelter in place started. And so they were on the cusp, I think, of starting their Fund Development Committee, which I think will be an extremely useful tool to enhance what the staff are doing. And I'm hopeful that within the next month or so, they will actually be able to start that committee. And I just wanted to highlight that that's an important aspect of this entire endeavor that I know Mary Jane's been working with, and Inga as well. And Marcia and I have also been members of a steering committee related to that effort. And we'll probably be disbanding fairly shortly once we've got that committee going. But I do think that will be an opportunity to try to help out with all the funding losses that we'll be talking about in the next item on the operating budget, and to perhaps help to have a higher level of library service than we might otherwise have. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Francesca, I haven't seen you for a long time. Has anybody indicated they want to call in and speak about this?
Nobody has called in. As a reminder, the phone number to make a public comment during this meeting is 831-225-0330. You can enter the number 1927648, followed by the #. You will be automatically muted. Press *5 to be placed in the queue to speak.
Since we just made that announcement, I'm going to wait a little bit for delays and people formulating questions if they want to call in. So we'll give ourselves a 20-second break maybe and see if that happens. Ah, there's Francesca. Now I can see you again.
I am here, and there is nobody currently.
Okay. Well then, again, any further trustee comments on fund development? If not, then I will quote our city manager, who referred to the Monterey Public Library as a, quote, core service, and that we need to find funds to amend and supplement. We need to find funds to amend and supplement and add funding, to make up for some of the city losses. And obviously that's what Mary Jane and everybody else is talking about here. So to that end, I'm going to create and appoint an ad hoc funding committee, which will consist of Jim and Harish. Mm-hmm. And the work of this committee is to not simply come up with specific techniques like sending out letters or phone calls or emails or private visits, but to talk about how we can provide auxiliary and supplemental funding to pay for programs, services, all the kinds of things that won't be covered by the city budget for the library, which necessarily is going to be reduced in the coming year. And we are sort of in the habit of doing this, unlike the sports center, which can charge, admission to their various services and classes and everything. the library relies a lot on outside donations and funding, and we want to see just what we want to open up our eyes and look at a wide range of that. So Jim and Harish will be the new ad hoc funding committee to look very broadly at how we can supplement what the city gives us and continue to do as much of the good work as we have been doing in the future. So thank you in advance, Harish and Jim, for all that you're going to do. And if you have a chance, at least the two of you to get together and chat before our next board meeting, which is really only about 3.5 weeks from now, I think, sometime in the middle of, it's the 17th of June, I believe. So that's not too far from now. And we can ask for just a brief, you know, off the top of your heads kind of report, okay?
Will do.
Great. If there's nothing else to be said on fund development, we will move to item 6, which is to approve. So ultimately, we'll need a motion and a vote to approve the recommended amendments for the next fiscal year to the operating and trust fund budgets. Inga?
Inga,
Inga?
Sorry, thank you. Okay. So because we're in a 2-year budget cycle, this would normally be the time that we would go back to the board and say, oh, you know, a few costs have gone up and we need to adjust the budget to accommodate those costs, or we've gotten some new trust donations and we want to adjust the trust fund budget. But this is not a normal year. And I thought to sort of set the stage about the sort of the really big picture about what's happening with the city, before we talk about the details for the library and the impacts for the library, I thought I'd invite Nat to sort of describe that for us. And if Hans also would prefer, he's of course welcome to do so as well.
Great, thank you, Inga. And I don't have a formal presentation, but we thought it'd be helpful to provide a little bit of context to where we are with the city's budget and what this COVID-19 crisis has resulted in. We've talked about how this is a black swan event, truly a high-profile, hard-to-predict, a rare event that has far-reaching impacts and long-term devastation to the city's budget. We've seen the unemployment claims have reached to the 33.5 million mark in the United States, and that's just from March 15th through April 30th, and so that doesn't include any data from this month alone. That is pretty drastic, and for us as an organization, we're working towards a paradigm shift in what we do, and we know that the city's financial position before and after COVID-19 is devastatingly different, and causes us to look at city services in a different way, certainly at least for the first year as we try to cope with the revenue losses and try to cope with the impacts to our city government and our ability to provide services effectively and efficiently. We know that the local impact has been very difficult with our hospitality industry, which is the #1 industry in the city and on the Monterey Peninsula. There's an 85% reduction in tourism globally and locally. We have a reduction of 35% of general fund, 62% of Measure P&S, 100% of NCIP. We've got business closures. I mean, luckily, we're hopefully going to be opening up soon, but that still remains to be seen in terms of what that impact is to our general fund. We know that the reality for FY20, which is FY 20 through 19 through 20, which we're closing next month, in just 3.5 months, a $10 million loss to the general fund. That's a 12.5% loss. Next year, we're projecting a loss between 14.5 million to 22 million to our general fund, which, as many of you know, general fund pays for a large number of city services that include groups like the library, the sports center, the recreation center, parks division, for example. That's again a 17.5 to 26.5% loss, and recognizing that the city declared a fiscal emergency in October 2019. So you can just imagine the compounding effect that the fiscal situation that we were in October 2019 has certainly made that situation worse. So the long story here, and so that I can cut to the chase, is that what Inga will be presenting to you all today will be our I hesitate to use the word recommendation because it's devastating and very heartbreaking to be able to present a budget that you see before you, but it's what's necessary given the devastating impacts of COVID-19, at least based on our projections for this first year. It is our hope, and Hans has mentioned this, and others have mentioned it as well, that we do indeed want to bring employees back. We want to reopen services as much as we can. But we also know there's limitations, at least in the short term, at least in this fiscal year, based on what we know today, on what we can budget for. Now, federal government comes in and says they want to give cities the revenue they need to bridge the gap. Then that's a whole nother story. We receive a $10 million check from the federal government tomorrow, then that's a whole nother conversation. But right now, based on what we know, these impacts are long-term, and we have no other option but to stay solvent and avoid bankruptcy and pay our bills. So Inga will go through a little bit more of a detail with all of you on what the budget entails, what the services are, what services we'll be able to keep, and both in terms of the services due to the shelter-in-place order, as well as the services that we can sustain based on general fund revenue that is coming in from the city. I think all of this stresses the importance of why it's so helpful and so critical that we rely on our partners like the Friends and Foundation for funding, and nonprofit organizations to help supplement the limited property tax revenue and other revenues that we do receive through general fund that helps sustain and support the library. We all know that the library is an important service to our community and it needs to be funded. The question is, how do we continue to fund it in a way that's sustainable, both short-term and long-term? So I hope that provides you with a little bit of an overview on the city's budget, but I do want Inga to, and would like to see Inga provide a little bit more detail on what she's presenting for you today. And I know Hans, we have some things to add as well.
Yeah, before we continue with Inga, let me be very clear where we are. We are shooting for a budget revenue loss for next fiscal year that is around $19 million. That's our target of savings, $19 million. Our general fund budget is a little bit over $80 million right now. The worst case scenario that we are projecting is a loss of around 22.2 million. Best case scenario is 14.5. So we're taking a kind of a cautious look, going towards more the middle of that range. So $90 million is a lot of money. And we also have projected the loss between March and June this year at $10 million. What I can tell you right now is that we are actually briefing the council next week, Wednesday, that this projected loss between March 2020 and June 2020 is actually closer to $13 million. So there's another $3 million in revenue loss that we did not anticipate at that time when we went in front of the council and we laid off 82 employees, eliminated 102 positions, took money from the NCIP, the CIP, and other opportunities that we had to help offset the loss. So while I really hope that at the end of June, early July, when we finish out fiscal year 19-20, that our losses are not in the $13 million range or closer to the $10 million range as we predicted in April, chances are that there's another $3 million. So we're shooting for $19 million right now. Worst case scenario can be 22 plus eventually $3 million. So the situation that we have is very, very, very dire, very grim. Next week, Wednesday, we will present to the council a lot of options for the budget. And we will change a lot of the way we have thought about things in our city, because we are just forced to think in a totally new way. The old system cannot be sustained right now. Having said that, as your chair pointed out, the library will open. And the library will open when we are allowed to operate the library. The library is a core service. The library provides core services and traditional services. And we have to figure out jointly, okay, what do we want to provide as the core services? What is it really that we can do? And as you know, we will open the library. At the same token, we will open the Scholze Center, which will take care of our seniors among us. So two operations that do not have directly offsetting revenues at a time when we are facing $23 million of losses in revenues. So the challenge that our staff is facing, that our council is facing, the challenge that you are facing is we have to adjust our thinking of what we can afford. Recreation programs have offsetting program income. But here's the secret. They are not covering the cost of running a recreation program. Again, why is that? Recreation programs provide core services, and we want to offer them to everyone equally, independent of their income levels. So we are not recovering the cost for youth camps. We are not recovering the cost for the operation of the sports center. So we have to, going back to the library now, and that is what your library director will be presenting to you, we have to become very, very humble. We have to become very, very pointed in what we have to do. And we haven't figured it out yet what that is. And that's where we need your help. That's where the Board of Trustees also must advise us and tell us what is palatable for the community and what is palatable for you, the Board of Trustees. And last but not least, what is it that we can actually afford? Because priority for us remains public safety. Priority for us remains that we are able to respond to 911 calls, that we are able to have police officers that are qualified and trained and respond to challenges that are thrown at them. And we need to have public works employees that are able also to respond to every single pothole that gets called in. So having said that, what Inga will present to you is not pretty, but it's probably a great starting point for the new humbleness, for the new level of service that we can actually afford as City of Monterey. Our revenues are devastated. What we did a year ago, we cannot afford for the foreseeable future. With that, I hand it over to Inga.
Thank you, Hans. So yes, it's hard to wrap our heads around just how devastating this the fiscal impact has been. And so after multiple discussions with the city manager's office about what library service looked like within this fiscal crisis, the recommendation before you is a budget for the next 12 months that is 70% less than we had planned to spend in this coming fiscal year. That's from the general fund. In the trust fund, there's a slight increase, but that's because that's the way we build that trust fund budget, is we wait to see what revenues we've brought in, what gifts we've received, and then we don't know that 2 years in advance, but now we know, for instance, that we received money from MC Gives to do children's programs. So that money has been added into the trust fund budget. So the report before you kind of walk you through what the biennial budget review is. what our fiscal emergency is that you just heard about. And then the assumptions that we've made in trying to identify what would we put into a budget. So it's almost as if we've built a budget from scratch with the very, very, very least that we can put in order to provide some very basic services to the community. So we're starting with the 3 staff positions that we have, which is my position, the admin assistant position, and a librarian, and looking at what services the 3 of us can provide, and then looking at what else do we need to add in, and trying to keep it right around the level of $1 million. So the budget that is before you prioritize some services, and as Hans said, it's up to our community and up to our board to identify really what you see as core. But what we've experienced is that people still really need a source for information where they know that they're not having to pay to get the facts about something, where they know that we'll try to give them information from all different sides of the aisle and facts. And so we're still providing phone reference service, and also we're answering reference questions by email. And then we prioritized digital materials because right now people can't handle or we can't distribute physical materials. We can't circulate physical materials yet. So people are using audiobooks and streaming video and that sort of thing. Then we know that one of our core services has been literacy programs for children. And so we would continue having a virtual children's program and teen program. And then when we can, we will circulate materials again. We hear over and over again, the staff that answer the phone hear that daily. I miss books. When can I get books? When can you do curbside delivery? People really want to have that tactile experience when they're reading. Then one of the things that has happened in the past during financial downturns is once a library is open, people use library resources for finding jobs, for applying for benefits, for finding information about what grants and things are available for them if they're a small business. And so we want to, as we're looking at reopening, make sure that we're providing that service. And there's actually some funds through the state library, which will probably be eligible for workforce development and emergency recovery, for being a center for that kind of information. And then finally, so many of our customers say that they come to us for that sense of community, that sense of connection. And what we have found in our virtual programming is we're able to do some of that. I'm looking at Francesca because she's been really good at running Zoom meetings where people really can interact in this new kind of way. So as that sort of thing becomes available, we want to make sure that we are able to provide that kind of sense of community connection going forward. Included spreadsheets that show how the money would be allocated, and I'm happy to answer questions about that. I guess I should say some of the things that we don't envision bringing back with such a significantly reduced budget. So one of the services that we currently aren't able to operate because of social distancing that doesn't show in this budget is our Bookmobile service. Our Bookmobile service is a very important service to our community and to us. It's a great way to link to all different communities. It's very popular at the Montecito Park neighborhood. We have a lot of low-income families, and we've been able to do wonderful bilingual programs there. We go to a couple of senior residences where people have told us that we're their lifeline. So we know that that's a really important place to go. We go to the military housing. So many families there don't have transportation, and it's very vital. They have, you know, they can get children's materials and adult materials and so forth. So our Bookmobile service has been very vital in our community. It's possible we might be able to have a staff member use a city vehicle and just take holds to people in those areas. We're not sure at this point. Another thing that this budget doesn't include is a dedicated staff member for local history. And we know that that is such a critical part of our identity, is you know, providing information and helping researchers locally and around the world learn about our rich early California history, but it doesn't include a component for that as well. And then there's so many other things that we've done that aren't included here, but I don't want to go on and on. In the trust fund budget, since we did receive this wonderful gift to run our summer reading program, and summer reading falls in 2 fiscal years, so we're asking to have that money allocated for July for continuing our summer reading program. And then because of the MC Give money, which was raised, which is $31,800 to run children's and teen programs for the year, we have allocated some of that money into the budget as well. So the trust fund goes up slightly. We've allocated some of the MC Gives money towards staff, and hopefully we'll be able to, not full-time, not regular part-time staff, but for on-call hours, so that we can continue some of the virtual story programs and also teen programs, ideally in the fall and the winter and spring. So I'll stop talking and ask you what your questions are.
Most of the squares on my screen are frozen, so if you're wagging your finger because you want to talk, I can't see it. So just speak up if you have a question of the information that Inga has presented.
This is Jim. I have a question, if I may.
Please.
I was trying to, it seems to me that this item and the next item, they want about the reopening plan overlap, at least in my mind, quite a bit. And I was trying to understand how much of the reopening plan would be covered by this budget as it's proposed. And trying to look at some numbers, it appeared to me that if it were done for a full year, the phase 2 would probably be approximately covered by this proposed budget. A full year of phase 3 would probably be more expensive than this proposed budget. But on the other hand, we would go through these phases. I'm assuming we wouldn't go into phase 2 for a while, and phase 3 probably quite a bit longer. So by phasing the various phases, we probably would have enough money in this proposed budget to get through the 3 phases by the end of the year. Is that a fair summary of the kind of what would be covered by this proposed budget?
Yes, that was the thinking behind it, that we wouldn't be zooming to phase 3 right away. And so as we're slowly ramping up, there would be enough in the budget to cover the costs of phase 3. That said, there will also be the opportunity in the middle of the year to look at the budget again and to look at how the city is doing and to make adjustments. And also, we could allocate more trust fund money. This has been, conservative, but we could, or if we get additional gifts or grants is another thing. We're certainly looking at grants, and Mary Jane is looking into one in particular that we think we'd be eligible for. And if we receive grant funds, then that might assist us as well.
Okay, good. And then my second question was, if I may, Bob, continue.
Sure.
The trust fund policy at the end of it does have it says the trust fund will not be used to offset deficient general fund appropriations for basic library services, except in cases of severe financial distress as determined by the board. And certainly based on my 35 years in city government, this is a severe financial distress if I've ever seen one, more than I ever hope to see. So I don't know when the appropriate time would be, but it would seem to me at some point, and we might even be able to do it today, that we would want to make a formal determination that there is a severe financial distress, and that we would envision, maybe not as part of this proposal, but maybe the next one, that we probably would use some trust fund money to offset what we'd otherwise assume the general fund would cover. So I kind of threw that out as both a question and a comment. Thank you.
And if I could add, I think that this is the report that requires board approval, and the next report is to receive a report and provide direction. So it might be that the motion to approve for this item would need to include the board's recognition that we're experiencing severe financial distress.
At the appropriate time, I'd be happy to make that part of the motion.
Okay. Well, I think since as I guess it was Nat pointed out, the city declared a financial emergency months ago. So I don't think we need to come up with any special findings to say that those emergency criteria that Jim was reading already exist.
I would agree. The only reason I mention it is the policy does call for the board to make that determination. So in a sense, we could be duplicating what the council has already done. Yeah, so we could, if somebody makes a motion, we could say, in recognition of the city's declaration, the library board notes a financial emergency and then go forward from there.
I'll make that motion.
That sound good? So does somebody want to make a motion to, based on all of that, approve the recommended amendments that Inga has presented? Harish, are you making that motion?
Yes, I am.
If I could, I believe that might be premature. We probably should ask for public input first.
Is there anybody? Yes. Well, public. Okay. Does anybody have any? Francesca, is anybody called in with questions or comments on this agenda item?
So now is the time where we'll open the comments for anyone who does wish to comment on this item. To do so, please call 831-225-0330. Press 1927648#. And as a reminder, it's best to follow this meeting on YouTube as it has the shortest delay versus Comcast, which has an approximate 90-second delay. When you do call in, you'll be muted. Press *5 to be placed into the queue to speak. As of right now, there's nobody. However, we'll just wait shortly, or if you'd like to continue your discussion, then I can let you know if somebody does call in.
Well, we can wait and see if anybody calls, or Jim, the other procedural thing is to have a motion and a second, and then there's discussion of the motion. But while I'm chatting here, we'll take up 20, 30 seconds and see if anybody does call in. Francesca, I guess we have not received any. Pardon me?
Actually, there is a caller.
Okay, well, let's have that caller take his or her turn right now.
Yes, and the caller ending in 4642, you are now live. Thank you for joining the Monterey Public Library Board of Trustees meeting.
Yeah, I just want to say as a member of the public that I agree that there is a financial crisis.
Thank you. Is there any additional comment that you would like to make?
No, not at this time. The board members asked what the public thought, and I think there is a crisis. All right, thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, David. And at this time, there is nobody else that is waiting to speak.
Okay. Pardon me, is there somebody else?
There is not.
Okay. Well, then let's move on. And Harish, why don't you go ahead now? You said you wanted to make the motion.
I'll make the motion that the board recognizes that the city is in severe financial distress and that we should look at other means as proposed by Inga to fund the basic services.
And approve the recommended amendments that she outlined for us?
Yes, correct. And approve the recommended amendments.
Okay, is there a second of that, please?
I'll second it.
There
There
are
are
no
none.
callers.
Okay. Well, then I'll call for the vote. And Francesca, we need a roll call for this?
Chair Petty,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moreau,
Aye. Aye.
Trustee Joshi,
Aye.
Trustee Thompson,
A reluctant aye.
and Trustee Widmar.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. The motion passes. And we will then proceed to item 7, which is to receive and discuss and possibly provide direction to the staff regarding the library reopening plan, which is, focusing pretty much on what we're going to do next. Before we move to that, I had one thing that I wanted to correct in the agenda report for the item 6 that we just discussed on packet page 25. Nat used the word devastating a bunch of times, and the heading for the second paragraph on packet page 25 is devastating fiscal impacts. And the sentence reads, you're going to start laughing when I'm done. On April 21, City Council received a sobering report that the COVID-19 pandemic has led to tremendous revenue to the city of approximately $10 million. I think. Is anybody there?
Yeah, I guess we didn't proofread that one.
The word losses is missing for sure.
Yeah, it should say loss of revenue, not led to revenue, right? I mean, we wish.
Revenue losses.
Yeah, anyhow, the word loss ought to be in there. Otherwise, I don't know what Nat's been talking about. Okay, given that correction.
Writes a draft agenda report at 11 o'clock at night to 1 in the morning, which is usually when I get emails from her.
Oh, I see. Well, those are Jim's prime working hours. Okay, so now we will move on to item 7, which is the plan for reopening, and I'll let Inga start with that.
Okay, so as we look at reopening, there are just 2 huge challenges. One is, of course, the restrictions because of the pandemic. so we have to be really super, super cautious in what we can do, and make sure that the safety of customers and the safety of our staff is our number one priority, and that we're following all the guidelines and not overstepping any restrictions on how we do business, or how we serve the public, and how we provide wonderful library service. So that's one thing that makes it a challenge to plan how we reopen, because one of the basic principles of a public library is it's a public gathering place where people can interact, and people gather together, and people who don't know each other, sit at the same tables and read, and ask us for information. There's a lot of public interaction and so forth. Children come running in and play with all these toys, and chew on them and things like that. But we have to be really thoughtful about how we're going to provide service while providing, making sure we follow social distancing restrictions and so forth. Another big question is people touching books and then sharing books with one another. Of course, we circulate shared materials, and we're going to have to do that in a safe way. So that's one of the challenges. And the other challenge is, how do you do this when we've had such devastating losses and we have such a restricted budget? And we have such a reduced staff. So those are sort of the two things to be looking at. And when we look to see what else is happening in the country and how other libraries are gradually reintroducing their services, I haven't heard yet from a library that says, not only do we need to figure out how to do this in this new way, but we've also had a loss of this magnitude in the budget. But we have looked to other libraries, and our state librarian has developed draft guidelines for us to look at and follow. And then lots and lots of libraries have drafted their plans, some in quite a lot of detail. And so looking at those models, the managers and I, we came up with this 3-phase approach. So right now we're in phase 1, not quite. After June 1st, we'll be in phase 1 with our significantly reduced staff, and what we plan to be able to continue to provide in that environment is information service over the phone, and we'll continue to coordinate with Pacific Grove around what kinds of things we're thinking about and what kinds of things they might be thinking about. We'll continue to issue library cards, and so that requires us to process applications, and then we email the person back with their card number so that they can hop on all the cool electronic resources, digital resources we have, and then we mail out a card to them. We'll continue to, we've been still receiving books through our book return, but we allow them to quarantine for several days before a staff member loads them on a cart. And we'll be promoting our digital collections. We'll be doing our fundraising, and we'll have here under programs, it gives you an idea of programs that we'll be providing. So we're going to try to do a children's program once a week, and teens as well. And those teen ones have been prepared by our teen librarian. And then we'll do a couple of adult programs at least a week. And then we're going to be rolling out our summer reading program. So this is like the big thing that happens in the summertime, is we do a big push for summer reading. Luckily, we're going to have an online program where reading logs can be logged online. We'll have paper copies as well for those who don't have access to online services, although we haven't finalized how we're going to distribute those paper reading logs. And then we're going to have prizes at the end of summer reading, and we don't yet know if we'll be able to deliver those through curbside delivery, if we have curbside with them, or if we're just going to have to wait till the fall. And let's see. And we'll continue. We've been doing weekly e-blasts. And one of the things that happens behind the scenes is we have to keep our technology up and running and update our website as we can. So that's our first phase. Phase 2 is curbside delivery. And what that will involve, so it'll involve everything I've just talked about and then some. So in curbside delivery, staff will be able to return to the workplace. We'll have to make sure we have protocols in place for social distancing, for plenty of cleaning of the building, and supplies for hygiene and so forth. And then in the curbside delivery program, we would actually then be having customers place holds. They have been placing holds, but we would actually pull those holds for them. And then in a safe way, people could let us know when they're coming, and then staff would be able to go out and deliver the materials to them in hopefully a way that doesn't involve any kind of contact. So if they could open their trunk, or we could put the materials on the hood for them, and that sort of thing. So that's the main thing about phase 1, is that we would do that. In order to start phase 1, there are lots and lots of things in our library catalog that we need to turn on, turn off. Right now, no notices are going out, so we have to set that setting. There are a number of things that we have to do under the hood with our library system in conjunction with Pacific Grove. So we need to coordinate with them and see where they are on curbside delivery. The big change in phase 2 is that this is when we would actually have people come to the library by appointment. So the scenario that we have in mind is if the restrictions have lifted to the point that we could have a limited number of people, say 10 people in the building, or 10 to 20 people in the building, how would we do that in such a big space? How would we make sure that social distancing was maintained? And so the idea is people would make an appointment, they'd come to the library, they would be there for maybe an hour, and then we would say the library's closing, everybody would have to leave, then staff would have to wipe all the surfaces down that they could, and there would be a gap between the one group being in there and then the next group coming in. That's the kind of recommendations we've seen from other libraries. We're envisioning a lot of details for each of these phases, which I don't need to go into at this point, but we would probably have our stacks sealed off so that we didn't have people wandering around in the bookshelf area and possibly getting too close to one another if the still have that 6-foot distancing requirement. We would have computers available, but we would not have as many computers available because right now people sit within inches of each other next to the when they're sitting at a computer. So we would have to have a lot of those computers go dark or relocate them in the building. We would also have to take a lot of the furniture away and store it temporarily because you would want one person sitting at a table rather than right now we have 4 people sitting at a table, for instance. And then we wouldn't be able to have public meetings because of the requirements. And so we wouldn't be having public meetings for quite some time. So in the next phase, that's where we imagine, okay, what if up to 100 people could be in the building? What would we do then? And sorry for the second phase, of course, we need more staff if we're gonna be open to the public. And so that would be when we would be bringing in some staff. And then in phase 3 involves a little bit more staff and more people in the building. And Yes, that's, I could go on and on, but why don't I see if you have questions about what's presented here. And as Jim had said, this report is tied to the budget that you recommend amendments that you just approved, in that each phase brings on more in terms of staffing, and therefore the cost for running that phase goes up. But I will let you ask me questions.
Okay. I heard most of that. Nobody else moved besides you, but on my screen, but I did hear. Trustees, are there any questions for Inga to clarify any of this? I think we should point out that two things. Number one, Inga didn't have a lot of time to put this document together, and I think it represents a lot of excellent work in a very short period of time. And number two, it is a working document, which means to me that it's going to be a lengthy period of time between phase 1 and 2 and 3, and we don't know what those periods of time are going to be and what will change financially or anything else. So what we see printed here may not even be true 6 months from now, because it is a working document which is meant to adjust to the circumstances within which we have. All that said, are there any questions? This as at least a starting point from which we threw our reopening over several phases.
Is that it's very possible that we open up as a community and then there's an outbreak. And so as the city's looking at their budget projections, they're saying, what would it look like if there was suddenly an outbreak in the fall? So in building our scenarios, we have to think, what can we back out if we need to go back from phase 3 to phase 2, from phase 2 to phase 0 again? So that needs to be kept in mind as we're building these kinds of plans.
Jim, Harish, Ralph, Marcia, anybody?
Yeah.
I have 3 questions, but let Ralph go first.
Oh, I was just going to say that these are uncharted waters, and I think that the plan that's been outlined for us here with the different phases that shows which services are provided in each phase, it looks like it's well thought out. It's got enough room for flexibility in it, as Inga pointed out, if we have to, of course, I've never had an experience where I developed a plan and it worked exactly that way. And usually it was for a good reason. So I think that I like it the way that it is. I think obviously there's going to be some tweaks in it operationally that I don't think need to be approved by the board if we're going to go, okay, maybe there's going to be a little bit of overlap between phase 1 and phase 2 or whatever. I think we just want to leave that up to Inga and the staff to see how best they can operate the library under the circumstances that are prevailing at that time.
Thank you. Jim, did you say you had a comment or question?
Jim, you are muted. Could you start again?
Thank you. I'm sorry. Yes, I have 1 comment and then 3 kind of minor clarification questions. The overall comment is very similar to Ralph's. I agree that this seems like a very well thought out plan and makes a lot of sense. And I realize, it's a working document and, will change over time, but I think it's a very good starting point. And then getting into my questions, on packet page 31, under the fiscal implications, it says it's recommended that the general fund support operating costs up to $1 million, but the previous item we approved $1,023,591. So I assume that actually that million should be the one 1023591. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you so much for catching that. Yes.
No problem. And then I have two others that I think are also kind of typo sorts of things, or in the rush of trying to get the report out at midnight or whatever. But moving on to packet page 36, at the very top under service hours in phase 3, it shows the building open Tuesday through Saturday from 12 to 6. And if I understand it correctly, that maybe should be 11 to 6. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, I had a change of, I realized when I plotted this out on a mock schedule that we could actually be open, looks like 7 hours a day, 5 days a week when we get to that phase. And so that would be correct, that it should be 7.
Good. And then my last minor clarification is on packet page 37. Under the information and referral services in phase 3, it indicates in-person assistance Monday through Saturday. And I'm wondering if that should be Tuesday through Saturday. Was that the intent?
Yes, Tuesday through Saturday. Thank you.
Good. So that, to me, it makes more sense with those clarifications. So I appreciate that. And I realize it may change next week, but
yes.
As of this point in time, I wanted to kind of clarify what the intent was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harish, Marcia, do you have anything to ask for clarification on?
Yes.
Go ahead, Marcia.
Marcia, I see 4 fingers.
This is just a general question. How do you know?
But I don't hear you.
How do you know when you can move from stage 0 to phase 1? Is that's a city clearance to do that? So that you'll get a phone call that says, maybe this is a question for Hans or Matt, but how do you know that you can move to the next phase?
Well, I would envision that. So first of all, we need to have an adopted budget, but maybe that's not correct.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing the question is referring to moving from phase to phase. Is a lot of that has to do with the social distancing requirements in the Monterey County Health Order. Right. So we've been tracking what the various services, types of businesses, parks. We're doing the same thing not only in library but with the sports center, and which is a gym. It's part of the phase 3 in the governor's approach. We've got the conference center, which is like a convention center, probably the last type of facility to open. So we're following the health order recommendations, the health order guidance and requirements. But beyond that, I know Inga's been following very closely in her team what the consortium and the other libraries throughout Northern California are also doing. So a lot of this is, I think she may have mentioned, is modeled after that. But a lot of that has to do with the health order. Obviously, there's social distancing requirements that we're sure if libraries are allowed to reopen will be put in place. We would have the drop off of books potentially, or at least pickup. Those are all based on, at the end of the day, the health order and what Ed Moreno regulates for us.
Yeah, so I think we need to have the restrictions lifted, and then we need to be ready to do it. So to be ready to do it, we need to have the supplies like the PPE. We need to have a procedure in place for maintaining social distancing amongst the staff. And then since each of these phases involves having additional staff members, you would need to have the clearance to go ahead and bring a staff member back, or to bring in on-calls.
Okay. Hans said earlier today, as soon as we can, we will open the library, but, quote, it will not be the library you have seen before. And I think we all realize that none of the things throughout the city and maybe throughout the state and the whole country that are shut down now, when they finally get going again, will be the same as they were before. So the library is not particularly unique in that regard. But to complement the ad hoc committee of Harish and Jim that's going to look at funding, I'm going to create a second ad hoc committee to assist us now that will be dealing with planning, and that will be Marcia and myself. And we will meet with Inga and other staff and the city manager's office to talk about what we want to do given the financial and health consideration restrictions that we have, and what's the best way to go about it. We might have a list of 25 things we want to do, but we can't do them all at once because this is going to be a gradual opening, a gradual rollout, as Inga has outlined in this initial working document. And so it will be up to Marcia and me as this ad hoc planning committee to work on those and represent the board and report to the board on how we're progressing from phase 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. And of course, in concert with the city manager, because it takes the finances to do it. So we will go forward with that in terms of planning, starting with the first thing would be some phase of some aspect of reopening. Are there any, at this point, let's see if there are any people from the public who have been listening in. Francesca, would you repeat the phone number and the call-in procedure? Yes. If there are any.
To comment, please call 831-225-0330 and enter 1927648 followed by the pound sign. You will be automatically muted. Press *5 to be placed in the queue to speak. Right now, there are no calls. However, we might wait.
Yes.
Just a moment.
We will wait. If there has been no response from the public, I think then we can probably go forward. And is there any other discussion from either the staff or the trustees who are with us today?
I wanted to add something, which is the city is looking at what it will take to bring, to allow people back to the workplace. And there is a safety committee that the city has, and they're looking at policies to introduce that have to do with social distancing, with cleaning the facility, and so forth. So as we plan the reopening, we'll have this great resource in the city of, you know, a lot of that kind of stuff figured out and put in place for all employees. So that is taking place.
Good. And reference was made earlier to the draft document from the California State Library Office with reopening guidance for California's libraries. And it's, all the trustees received it before our meeting today. And I would just suggest re-looking at that because I think it's along with what Inga has put together, a good place for us to start as we plan you know, the unfolding of the Monterey Library and the reopening and becoming whatever we're going to become. Any other comments on this item? That doesn't require any, it's more of a receive a report and talk about it. And we've given implicit, and in some cases explicit direction to Inga and the staff for what we think should happen. And I've set up this ad hoc committee of Marcia and me to represent the board in talking with her about this. Anything else? All right, well then we will move forward to our last agenda item.
Bob. Bob.
Which is the report. Bob. And
Bob. There is one person
yes?
who just called in and who has raised their hand to speak.
I can't.
There is
can't
a
hear you.
public comment.
Oh,
And so-
with regard to the previous item?
I assume yes. So just
Okay,
one
well,
moment. And
we'll allow one. Go ahead.
Joanne White, you are unmuted. Thank you for calling in. You're live.
Hi, this is Joanne White, and I just wanted to thank Inga for talking about the Bookmobile Service and how important that is, especially at Montecito Park and La Mesa Village. And especially Montecito Park, those customers live far from the library. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, so yeah, if you can find a way when it's phase one or at least by phase two to bring the physical books to that community, I think it is very, very important. It's a low income neighborhood. And again, very few of them get to the library. I don't think they watch programs online on the website. So I just don't want them to be forgotten. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling.
Sure.
So I know that we don't comment on comments, right? But could I add something to what about
Inga?
Yeah.
Inga, before you comment, could you? I one word of what she said. What she was talking about, and then go ahead with your comment.
Oh, so I was going to say we've been trying to think of how to get books to children during this crisis. And once we're able to use our little free libraries, which we have distributed in parks around the city, and we have one at Montecito, we've thought that that would be a good way to make sure that children have access to books. And so that's one way we've been discussing it. We've also talked to the school superintendent and might have books at their grab and go meal program during the summer, which is especially for low income folks, where they can, if they can get to Monterey High School, then we would try to use the employees at the school district who have their masks and gloves and everything to help distribute books.
Okay, thank you. Francesca, are there any more call-ins?
No, there are no more callers waiting right now.
Okay, then we will move to the last item, number 8. And normally this is one of several reports, and we simply ask the trustees if there are any questions or comments about the information in the report. And I could do that again, or if Inga, you want to provide additional discussion about this, then go right ahead.
Inga, you're muted as well.
I've lost everything.
I didn't have anything in particular to comment on with this report. It's just one of our standard reports, and I thought we should have one last look at what the old budget was like.
Okay, are there any trustees that have questions or comments on this? And you'll have to speak up because everybody's screen is frozen on my computer.
Bob, I have one minor question.
Go right ahead, Jim.
Inga, I'm assuming this is the April report. I'm assuming that means it's through April 30. Is that correct?
Francesca told it, so yeah.
It was actually run yesterday. So the one thing is, though, with the financial department is when the period closes, that depending on whether everything has been combined. So it was run as of yesterday, even though it has the April. And thought of that today, and my apologies, or yesterday, that it notes that.
No problem. I understand. Thank you.
Any other comments on the financial report? Ralph, Marcia, Harish? Okay, well, thank you. We have received that report, and finish up with trustee comments. Nat, Hans, or anybody else besides the trustee have any final words?
Just wanted to, again, thank you very much, Board of Trustees, for your support during this difficult time. Your leadership is valued and appreciated and needed as we navigate what our library will look like this year and into the future. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for the staff. We know our team has been working extremely hard over the last several months, and we do hope to, for those who we will have to say goodbye, we hope that that's as temporary as possible, and welcome them back once we're able to do so. So thank you.
All right, and then let's see, how about trustee comments? We'll go around. I'll just call the names out because, again, everything's frozen for me. Jim, any closing comments?
Yes, thank you, Bob. I have two comments. One, kind of reflecting on the overall budget situation, both in the library and citywide. I personally have decided to waive my stipend for the current fiscal year and next fiscal year. And I'm thinking, number one, other trustees might want to consider that. And number two, the city manager or city council might want to consider a similar policy citywide of suspending stipends during the financial emergency. So I'll just throw that out as a comment and a suggestion. And the second, and more importantly, I wanted to thank all the staff in the library that have been working so hard during this period. And particularly, it's with a heavy heart, I wanted to thank all the employees that are going to be laid off on June 3rd. I've been through similar things in other situations, but this is more difficult than any I think I've been involved in. And I want them to know that I know the entire board and the city council honors and appreciates their work, and hope they understand that, you know, the fact that their position is being laid off is no means diminishing the importance of their work and how much we honor and appreciate it, and how much we look forward to the ability for them to return. So I just wanted to emphasize that. That's probably the most important comment I wanted to make tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I'll go next to Marcia.
Well, I echo Jim's thank you to the staff and to Inga for in advance for pulling us all through this. Now the other side, I'm confident that we'll get there. And I also am happy to waive my stipend. I kind of thought that we were going to get our stipends cut, but I didn't think we would get them at all. But I'm happy to give it back to the city to help with the budget.
Okay, Harish?
I agree with that sentiment. I think that's a good idea. Let the stipend go to back to the library if we can.
Yes.
And Ralph?
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think it's, silly that we're laying people off, but we're still getting stipend checks, even though it's not, like we're sitting on some Fortune 100 board and getting those types of stipends. But it is one of those small things that adds up. And I think given the sacrifices that the staff are going to be making, it's the least we can do.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And rather than to let the city keep the stipend and not mail it to me, I let them mail it to me, and then I donate it directly to the library. So I know it goes to the library instead of back into the larger fund.
It's
just so that I can, support that specific interest that I have.
It's actually in the budget.
Well,
yeah.
Inga,
It's
your
a
lips
line-
are moving. Are you talking?
Yeah, so it is an item that we budget in the library budget, the stipend. So by waiving your stipend, then that will be money in the library budget that we can spend on other things.
Oh, it comes from the library budget. I thought it came from the city budget because all of the commissioners and everybody gets something. It comes
No,
from the library budget?
Yes, it's in the library budget.
Oh, okay. Then I don't need to do what I said I do because it would stay in the library even if I never touched it. Oh, okay. Thank you. I didn't understand that.
Yes.
Well, great. Well, thanks everybody for a late Friday afternoon, early evening meeting. And we shall meet again, and hopefully we can work on maybe using Zoom or something where the electronics are a little better, because I don't know about you, but I've had a terrible time seeing and hearing everybody. And maybe by June 17th, we'll have a better, more fluid system to use. But anyway, stay safe. And if there are no objections, I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night.